We're all about the Archers. I'm Philippa and I'm joined by Katie and Quentin today because we are very excited to be talking to the wonderful Annabelle Dowler who plays Kirsty Miller. We've dragged her away from trying to sell her house and her Rewilding project. Annabelle, welcome.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
Lovely to have you on the podcast. Well, let's get down to essentials, Annabelle. Tom Archer and Philip Moss. What is it with Kirsty and men?
It's not her fault. Can we just say that now? She dealt a very serious, bad kind of bad luck, I think. And Tom, she was with Tom for 15 years on and off. It was mammoth, their relationship. He was unfaithful to her. She went back to him. I mean, all sorts happened. She took him back after Brenda. And I actually think, I don't know how you recover from what happened to her in that church all those years ago. I think that is so damaging to be humiliated like that in front of the whole village. And then what? And nothing, no signs. I mean, she obviously tried to, with hindsight, oh yeah, maybe I made a big thing of the wedding and I should have read the signs that he was having cold feet. I don't think there was any sign. I think he was in existential crisis. It was all about him. I genuinely don't think she put a foot wrong. And then what that triggered in terms of her insecurity then with Helen, and she known, and could she trust her best friend and all that followed. I think, it's hugely traumatic, and you don't, any breakup's hard, but that, an engagement, a marriage, in the vestry being dumped like that, howling, everyone hearing your grief. I mean, it couldn't get much worse. So I think she therefore has just an innate, huge insecurity with believing in relationships. I think it's really hard. And I think that's because I used to, when I first got together with Philip, when Kirsty got together, I was a bit like, I can see why she, after Tom, would have gone for someone like Philip, who inspired confidence, was much older. There was that sort of generation gap. And he was like, you can do this. Yeah, go for this job, go for Rewilding, And he was totally different. I don't think it was a big love affair, if I like. I was also surprised that she was willing to commit him, knowing he definitely did not want children. Because I do believe that Kirsty really wanted that baby, and I think again to then get to go through that late marriage. I mean, it's just horrific. She's had so much trauma, and I think she puts on a really good base, and that's her way of coping. And I don't know. I mean, let's be honest. If that was me, I wouldn't be living in Ambridge.
Well.
But I was delighted that she chose to.
Yes.
Right, was keep her there. But I think she probably just thought, I am not changing my whole life because of this one man and because of this really awful thing that's to me, losing the baby Ren. And I think she's got some real inner strength, Kirsty, and she has to do it on her own now. And also Roy moving away as well. She's a bit rudderless in a way, having to do all this now with the house and everything on your own is incredibly stressful, I think.
I was going to ask you that when, as an actor, when you saw that storyline being jilted at the altar, and you just said you yourself would have moved out of Ambridge because of the humiliation and the trauma of it, were you worried that, oh my word, they're going to be writing Kirsty out now?
Really, totally. Because we get, as you know, different editors every few years. And this one editor said to me, yeah, you've been a married top. So my mother in real life going around Formby Village telling people, I'm going to get off. And then, of course, I couldn't tell her mum's not going to happen. But then the new editor came on board, and then he changed the course of things. And although, yes, I was slightly gutted not to become an Archer, he did say to me, I'm sure Kirsty will, because you're going to go away to Canada. Not Canada at the time. You're going to go to Costa Rica. You'll go on the honeymoon on your own. And you will be out of the programme for 6 months because we just need that whole thing to breathe. But I am sure Kirsty's going to come back. But you don't know, do you? But what I liked about that story was, and it really did change things for me playing her, was that up until that point, we'd always had this sort of slightly beige version of Kirsty where she was working in, Ambridge Organics, working in the Ball, and there was that Jack's Bar, Cafe, whatever. She was always there sort of feeding other people's storylines on the listening end. And we never really, and because she doesn't come from a family of Archers or Grundys or anyone we know and recognise in Ambridge, you need to see a character go through trauma or something bad to get to know them, to feel for them, to see them be angry, upset, to see them being more three-dimensional. And And that storyline really gave me the chance to do that. And, she wasn't pleading with Tom. She wasn't crying there in the vestry. She was fierce and feisty. And she gave him, she said what she thought. And I thought, I really liked the way they wrote her in that storyline. And then what followed, the whole then spotting Rob Titchener's control over Helen. She was the one who saw that initially, and then the way she stood up to him in court. So I think it led us on to see a much feistier side of Kirsty, a really strong side of her, which was great. So in terms of just her character development, I was really grateful for that storyline. Obviously, it's sad that, 15 years on, whatever it is, she's still on her own. But I do feel there's a lot of women like that. And I've said before, I said in another interview recently, I've got quite a lot of Kirstys in my life, friends or family members in their 40s on their own, maybe losing that hope of having a child, becoming a mother. And that is the reality. Not everyone does. So, I would love something to happen with Kirsty. I'm sure we'll chat about that later. But I think it's good that there is someone like that in the village as well. And there'll be a lot of people listening to the Archers who are her age and older and have met that one person or settled down, had a family. And I think it's good that they're represented as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because it also says on the Archers website, Kirsty is always there for her friends, even when they don't deserve it. Some of your friends, I feel like, possibly take a little bit of an advantage or aren't always there for Kirsty. If you want to say Helen, we can say Helen.
Yeah.
We're with you.
Then don't you think we all have friends in our life with certain relationships we give more to? And then I know there's friends who probably take more. I give more to them. They take more from me in some relationships. But others, I probably don't give enough. We have friends who depend on us more or need us more than we need them. And I think that is life as well. Yeah. And I also think, I don't know. I don't know how Kirsty lives in the village and sees Tom and Natasha and their twins. I think that must be unbearable, But she does somehow. And the fact that, I think it was Helen and Natasha wrote to him for decorating the house for the twins' first birthday party or something. Why should you just tell them to get stuff? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do want to sort of go, why the hell are you doing this? Yeah.
But Annabelle, you've talked about how helpful Kirsty is to different people in the village and how much she puts up with. She's the cheerleader for so many. But I worry who is her cheerleader? Who actually lifts her up and celebrates her?
Well, sadly, I think Roy did a lot of that. I loved their relationship and I really missed those scenes with lovely Ian. And, we really loved working together. And some people would say, oh, Roy and Kirsty are going to get together. And we always said, no. We just really like that they've got this brother-sisterly relationship. He was there when she was, left at the altar. He was there when she actually started miscarrying, And I think they really did have a mutually supportive friendship. But now he's living abroad and Ian is sadly no longer with us, that we're not going to see that relationship again, which is really, really sad. But I did think, he had her. I also think that Kirsty's support for everyone is her way of coping. It sort of maybe deflects off her and her own problems, and she likes to sort other people that help. It's a way of maybe avoiding what she's tackling her own.
It did strike me when Kirsty's mother came to stay during the quite strange week of the Christmas Carol week, when Justin suddenly took over and started seeing the various ghosts of Christmas past, present and future. But anyway, when Kirsty's mother arrived for that experience, she suddenly was Kirsty's cheerleader.
Yeah. And I was so excited about that, Megan coming in, because she had come in, that actress, when before lockdown, we had a whole batch of brilliant scripts for the Philip and Kirsty wedding. And there were some really great scenes that then never got recorded because of lockdown, where Roy did a fantastic speech at the wedding, but was signalling, Kirsty, can you not see what's going on? It was really brilliant. Like, he was having to do this speech, but he was basically saying, don't do it. So clever. And Megan was there and she, and then that never happened. But that actress came in and only did one episode. So when she came back, I was thrilled, but little did she know, it seemed like it was just for that Christmas Carol. We didn't know that at the time, but I really loved having those scenes with her, because never having a family member, you get a different side of yourself when you're playing with your mum. You revert to being a teenager, you're able to squabble and snap back. And I thought it was great the way she was the only person saying to Kirsty, what are you doing, love? Come on. And that made Kirsty, in a way, have to go, okay, I know what you're saying, but actually, this is what I want to do. And that's when she really went for it with the Rewilding as well. So I hope she comes back, because I think it's useful to see those other sides and dynamics of a relationship.
I'm like you. I always loved, and I do miss those scenes between Kirsty and Roy. But we shall treasure them. Still on the relationship. We seem to talk about relationships with Kirsty. A few weeks ago, Kirsty and Rex both told each other that they love one another, but not in that way.
Yes.
That's code, isn't it? Come on, it's going to happen, Annabelle.
I don't know. As you know, people would have thought they don't tell us anything. I often think they don't know, and they want to see what viewers, listeners feel. I mean, it's sort of obvious that could happen. I can see why it would happen. I just think it's maybe, I feel that the history she's got with Tom, not going back to Tom, but I would love to see whatever relationship Kirsty has in the future has an effect on Tom, and for us to see that stirs things up somehow.
Yes.
You know, I had a brilliant idea. I say this now, well, I can say it maybe, because it's not going to happen. But I thought a while ago, it was great. It was Kirsty had a relationship, a younger man, that young man, John. They fell in love with, spite themselves, and keeping secret friendships. And then Tom found out, and then they had a child, and it ended up Tom's great nephew being Kirsty. You know what I mean? I just thought, I think it needs to be something like something that sends ripples, that sends those arches flying. I think Kirsty Rex, yes, but it could be a bit beige. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we want some drama. We want some drama, as well as finding passion and true love, maybe. So
yes. Bring back Eric, Annabelle.
Well, yes. Open wild swimming would be good. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the other highlights that you've said was recording at Glastonbury.
Oh yeah.
When you were doing those episodes, how did they work? Were you just in a little recording tent, or did you have a bit of an audience, or how was it all working?
Yeah, we were just sort of stood in a field doing it. And it wasn't like you were making references to the music that was on in the background. In fact, probably, I don't know for royalty rights whether we could or not. So we could have actually done it in a field anywhere, frankly. But it's quite nice to get 3 days in Glastonbury. It was absolutely brilliant, in fact. Jo Van Kampen, who plays Fallon, the other day, she brought in her actual photos in a little album that she'd had from back then. And oh my God, they were amazing. Photos of myself, the old Tom Archer, Joe, Barry, who plays Ed, Tim Stimpson, the writer. We all looked about 12 years old, that was absolutely fantastic. And that's the thing about being the Archers. You sometimes get these nice little perks that come along with the job, and that was a definite highlight, because I'd never been to Glastonbury. I've never been since. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, we just did it. I think we got there the first day and we did a bit of rehearsal. Second day we recorded the scenes, just 10 in the morning outside, no special tent, just mics there. And the next 2 days we were free to do what we want.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, incidentally, talking about Rex, I got into a lot of trouble with the Archers community because I said in my mind, Rex, not the actor who plays Rex has bad breath.
Ooh.
And I don't know why, I just feel like Rex does. Yes. I got attacked quite brutally, so I'm still in penance for that. But there are the moments in Kirsty's life that we all talk about, and you've mentioned the scene in the church with Tom, the court case supporting Helen. But are the moments that we as listeners forget about Kirsty, but are still key moments for you, for Kirsty?
Even though it was horrific, I really enjoyed the arc of the story for Kirsty when she had that late miscarriage, because the way they chose to play it out was that she wasn't devastated afterwards. I mean, she didn't want to look at the baby. She didn't want to give the baby a name initially or anything. And she wouldn't talk about it. And she went, and a lot of the scenes I remember were with Roy then as well. She sort of went into absolutely manic. Do her, go get her, Rick, I'm fine, I've got to talk to everyone else. And it was her way of deflecting and coping, and people were asking how she was, and she couldn't bear it. And I think there was a brilliant episode written about 3 or 4 weeks after the actual miscarriage when we heard her talking to Helen, and she absolutely broke down and revealed, how she was, the guilt she was feeling about it all, that she hadn't wanted a baby enough. That, that, and actually, because you've been playing this character for so long and in real time, that really affected me, that episode. And I couldn't pretend to understand what Kirsty had gone through. I 2 very easy pregnancies, but I had 2 healthy children. But I really, and I'm not someone who can get the tears going immediately, but I broke down doing that episode. I remember it was so brilliantly written. And I felt it made total sense to the way she is. And we just saw her absolutely crumble and break. And then she went back to being, Kirsty, and it's okay again, and got to get on with life. And so I really enjoyed playing that vulnerability of her there. But obviously over the years, there's been lots of silly storylines as well. I mean, I used to love, even though Kirsty hates folding towels at Grey Gable, I used to love just all the banter with Linda and being sort of Linda's producer and being involved in all of Linda's shows. I love that, and doing Canterbury Tales and Passion. And, I've loved being involved in those big group scenes, having a real laugh with other actors who you don't actually get to play with that much,
Obviously, Kirsty was at the heart of the Rob Titchener, Helen coercive behaviour storyline, which is without doubt the most talked about storyline in Archer's history. At what point did it dawn on you quite how big this storyline had become in the national conversation?
No, I know. Well, very gradually, actually, just I suppose in the way that it did play out in real time as well. I don't think any of us saw that it was going to be like that until it started making, literally front page news. And I think Sean O'Connor, who was the editor then, did an absolutely fantastic job with the writers, and Louisa, who plays Helen. Because it started off as, I remember having a very funny scene with Rob Titchener, where they were in one of the plays together, and we had to sing a duet. And it's when Kirsty had just found out, Helen had just opened up to Kirsty, said, actually, I'm seeing Rob Titchener, and Kirsty obviously knew he was married. And they had to sing some ridiculous Gilbert and Sullivan type duet. And then while she was also going back, and it was like, it wasn't that, you know what I mean? And it all started, and she never liked Rob stuff. And that was like, but then obviously when it got more serious and more ominous as behaviour, and when Kirsty came back to the programme, it grew and grew and grew and just snowballed, didn't it? And was such an important story. Brilliant.
Because Helen, had to lean on Kirsty enormously. She would have crumbled.
What with the phone, this is your exit strategy. She took control, and she was there for, she was her absolute rock. And I mean, actually, Kirsty saved Rob Titchener's life, because when she could have left him to die, but she phoned 999, she phoned the ambulance. She saved this man. She couldn't, she abhorred him, but, and he destroyed her friend's life. But yeah, she was crucial in that storyline. It was I mean, I'll never forget that day when we played out the knife dropping and her ringing Kirsty and Kirsty going over. And it was really, it was a really sort of satisfying day in terms of acting in the Archers, but fantastic to play, yeah.
Draining as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but good, that's what you want to get your teeth into and have to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you would like Kirsty to have nicer storylines, or do you really enjoy the gritty stuff? Because obviously it is more interesting when it's not going your way.
Yeah.
But also, do you think it would just be nice to have a nice one?
It would be nice to have a bit of excitement, and I'd love her to fall in love again, yeah. But you want to have that drama as well, definitely. And I mean, with the slavery storyline, that I had no idea what. And actually, what was interesting with that was that we thought we were going to get married, and then the editor said, "You're not going to get married, but I'm not going to tell you." And then Philip and Gavin, the actors who played them, out of the room, and they came back in, and they knew what it was. And I said, "Oh my God!" We can't tell you. So we know now what. Is it?
Oh wow!
Weeks. I was good. Is it that you've murdered someone? Is it that you were accused of manslaughter, or that you had a stint in prison and you hadn't wanted me to know? Is it that what if he's got a history of child abuse? I was thinking, what could it be? Never. And I remember Jeremy, our boss, ringing me, and I was in Sainsbury's, and he rang to tell me what it is. And I was there literally shopping, buying, jammy dodgers for my daughter's birthday party. And he said, yes, they're running a modern slavery racket. I was like, what? I didn't even really know what that was. I didn't associate modern slavery. I mean, I learned so much with that storyline. I did not know that existed in rural Britain, you know what I mean, at the time. And so that was such a shock. And again, that was a brilliant storyline to play out. It was a shame that it got in the middle. We had COVID and everything. That was a shame. But it was, again, a really important storyline. And again, that fantastic thing of the audience knowing more Kirsty knew as well. But again, Kirsty calling the police on her own husband, reporting it, as soon as she found out. And she's never, doesn't seem to want to know how he's doing now, Philip. We never hear a report of it. That's why I sort of think, I don't know if she did love him that much anyway. I think it was a safety net. It was that coziness of being with someone and being looked after. Because I sort of thought that to blow the whistle on him so soon and to not want anything to do, I think she's got more respect and has more connection with Gavin, and we've seen that. And they left it, didn't they? Last time we saw Kirsty and Gavin, there's a tenderness there and an understanding and respect. So who knows, but I do think they always would relate to each other more, actually. Once she understood what Philip put his son through as well and how he manipulated him into being involved in the whole racket, then I think Kirsty saw Gavin in a different light.
But with Kirsty, as you've been mentioning, Annabelle, we've seen her bottle things up regularly on various occasions. We've seen her be a people pleaser and always go along with what people are putting on her. Is she heading for a complete psychotic breakdown?
I think the rewilding saves her. I think she gets out into nature and goes, I think, we're always reading about get outside, nature's your antidepressant. I seriously think it is for her. I think she breathes in Lakey Hill. She looks at the bird. She starts chopping back. She's making the dormouse boxes. I think that is what saves her. I do. Because I think that totally fills her life now. I think she's found her niche. She is so passionate about the cause, about the rewilding cause, and she loves being in the outdoors. And that's one of the reasons I think she's never gone home. She's never gone back to Merseyside. She stayed in Ambridge because she's found that's where she feels she's meant to be. And it's her passion project as well. But I mean, I think we can't hear her talking about this all the time because it would make the boring listening on the radio. But, I'm sure she lies awake a lot at night thinking, am I going to be on my own? How am I going to be talking? Now with this with the house and everything that's going on and surveys, it's so stressful doing that on your own. It's stressful enough when you're in a couple, but on your own. And I think that she must cry in bed at night sometimes. She must do. But we just don't have an episode focusing on that. She wants to listen to that,
Is she regularly having a glass of wine, every night?
Yeah, I think she opens on her own at night. I do. She always seems to want a glass when anyone else offers it to her.
Yeah.
She's probably now living on her own. Yeah.
And bring on the beavers as well.
Bring on the beavers. Now, please, let's hope the beavers start happening. Please. Not just so that Rex and Kirsty get a few more episodes, but, I think it would be hilarious.
But Annabelle, have they been released already and they caused the sewage spillage?
Don't blame my beavers on that. No. I'm hoping that they're writing a long-term story for the beavers, especially because there's been quite a lot in the press recently with it happening across the country.
Yeah.
There's so much potential for good storylines there, funny and dramatic. So that's
all right.
Space, yeah.
Katie.
Love it. No, I'm loving the beaver storyline. I hope it does continue because it is a bit different. It's an interesting kind of take because you've got two very interesting sides. So yeah. Long may the beavers continue.
Yeah, exactly.
Going back to when you very first started on the Archers, did you grow up listening to the Archers or was the whole world of Ambridge something brand new that you then had to take a step into?
Yeah, I had not listened. I think my granny had listened a bit. I mean, I obviously knew what it was, but I hadn't been a listener. I've been on the, I'd done some radio plays. So I got a couple of radio plays, which I did Birmingham in Pebble Mill. It was quite. So I listened to radio drama, and I think I only started listening to Radio 4 when I left drama school, and I started listening to Woman's Hour, and I listened to the Woman's Hour drama, and I listened to the afternoon play sometime, and I loved doing radio at drama school and was on the Carlton Hobbs team, which is what they get the team together to enter for the BBC competition. And I didn't get on the BBC, I didn't win a place on the rep, but I got a commendation, and a couple of radio drama directors said to me, oh, please keep in touch and whatever. And I was doing a play at Birmingham Rep, and I wrote into the Sue Wilson, who was head of radio drama at Birmingham at the time, and she said, oh, come in and just bring loads of pieces to read to me, which was just a luxury. You don't get asked to do that now. So I went in, I read loads of different voices, accent pieces, and straight away she gave me 2 radio plays. And while I was doing one, Julie Beckett in the Archers came in a list to read through and then said, oh, we're looking for 2 new characters, Kirsty and Brenda, as it turned out. And she said, Kirsty's going to appear first, so why don't you come and audition for her? But I knew nothing. And actually, you normally read in with the actor. But Tom, who played Tom at the time, was at Manchester Uni. He couldn't come up to the audition. So it was actually Terry, who played Mike Tucker, who read in on my audition. And so I got it, but I didn't have a clue. And then I started listening and trying to hear Tom. And, has anything been said about Kirsty? Oh, right, GM crops and how long it's been going out and whatever, But I didn't know anything. And it is quite, you don't get given a pen for anything when you start. There's no, well, I didn't then anyway, which might be quite useful, family trees. And I don't even think the website was certainly wasn't what it is now, and so I really had no idea. And you go in, and I remember my first episode. In fact, I stayed with your friend Friday Pluckman the night before, and I went in, and there was it was Ali Dowling, plays Elizabeth, was in that day. She had a baby with her in real life. Her baby. St. Greg was in my first episode. And Flip, who plays Ruth Archer. And I felt so young. And I was probably 24, 25, but playing a 19-year-old. And it was very different than doing a radio play because you all get together and you're there for 2 whole days doing a radio play. And it's like a little mini theatre company. But stepping into something where people see each other every month and knew each other's lives and were chatting to each other's husbands and babies, it was quite intimidating, until I found my feet and then met more of the younger actors. And then, but I mean, I only came in for 4 episodes. And as you know, you get a phone call each month how many episodes you've got that block. So you can't rely on it and you never know what's going to happen.
That's what all the actors tell us, that I've told 3 or 4 episodes and then we'll see. And then 35 years later, they're still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually had a temping job at London Forward Board in real life. And I would work in the post rooms. But I had a nice little room in Victoria, London, but not with a window. And I would sort out the post people pigeonholes. I had a radio in there. And I kept doing this when I did it for 2 or 3 years after drama school. And if I did a play, I'd go off for 2 months to get another temp to cover me. I'd go off and do the Archers. They just cover me when I was doing acting work. But I'd listen to the radio in there. And I had a few blocks where I just didn't have any episodes. And I listened to the Archer doing the post. And I suddenly heard Tom Archer knocking another woman, Lauren. And I stood there doing the post in the tourist office, almost in tears, because, oh my God, is that my time up in Ambridge? And then I realised, then they got the phone call, come back for more episodes. Tom was being unfaithful, you find out. And it was when we were doing a Gilbert and Sullivan, and he was with that girl, Lauren, and Kirsty, and they were doing duets together and all sorts. I mean, this is years. So, so the Archers collide, and then,
Oh, brilliant.
The weird life of...
Even now, I'm not recording in this block, but then I got the phone call last week. You have got episodes next block. You go, phew, not
yes,
little yet.
Yeah. And we're about to come on to the questions from the Facebook group, but before we do, just one last question. Food is very important to some of us on the podcast. Quentin hates us talking and analysing the food in Ambridge, but forgive us. Biscuits. What is Kirsty's favourite biscuit?
Oh God. You know what? I'm thinking about her roots and her mum and Megan and just being brought up in a sort of lower middle class, possibly, Merseyside home. I think it'd have to be a custard cream. I just think custard cream, it would be, a mum would have got, see a custard cream on the table there. And you might have got a wagon wheel and a wrapper as well. Maybe put into your school bag, that might have been a snack. I think, I don't think that she came from a family with a huge amount of money, but they were okay, you know. And I think it's back to basics, northern roots.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Well, now we come on
Hold on,
to...
Philippa, I can't believe you haven't mentioned the fact you can now get milk chocolate covered custard creams. I might as well get it in there. She's itching to tell you.
Yeah, from Marks and Spencer's, they are the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah,
and thick chocolate.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for sponsorship from M&S for this podcast, for Mention and every other podcast, okay?
Someone's literally just messaged me today as well to say that Marks has started doing shortbread flavoured tea. So that's my next thing. No. Anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so we come on to the questions from our Facebook group, which is our extra content for YouTube. Quentin, you've got the first one.
Comes from Nikki, and she wants to ask you, Annabelle, Kirsty has suffered a lot of heartache over the years, and it feels like she has drifted and lost her way a bit. Do you think her and Eric will cross paths again and she will find love? Or do you think beavers are her new passion?
Eric can't against beavers. Eric can't do anything. Eric can't commit to a thing. I think Eric was useful for a bit of fun, a bit of escapism, bit of a raunchy weekend in Prague. I think, Kirsty would have protected herself to not allow herself to fall for Eric. And she knew, which is hard to do, but I think she would have gone, he's not going to provide what I want, and he's not going to be. So no, there's no future with Eric, I don't think. I think beavers is the way forward. So maybe through the beavers, it will open up a pathway somewhere else, either a new contact, possibly something with Rex, who knows. But
skipping hand in hand through the Rewilding with Rex, searching for beavers, yeah?
Racing after them, jumping over barbed wire.
So romantic. I've got a question from Christine. Will romance blossom with Rex this year? So continuing on with the romantic theme with Rex.
Don't know. I don't know. I think it would actually, would it not be more interesting for them something to happen and then they both regret it and maybe they have to talk about it and say that we'll work together? I think maybe that might be more interesting. I don't know. I have no idea what the street likes stock plans, but I don't know. I mean, what was happening with Rex? Didn't he quite like Rochelle? So is he even interested in Kirsty? Seems like that. I don't know.
Where's Rochelle gone? I want her to come back. I want Joy's backstory. I'm sick of not knowing Joy's backstory.
I know. I think we all are. Yeah.
The next question is from Barry, and it's a supplementary question to the previous one. Could Kirsty adjust to living on a canal on the river, on Rex's riverboat?
I can definitely see her to the canal boat. Yeah. I mean, the worst thing for Kirsty, I think, living with Philip was when he brought her home. Do you remember that huge plasma screen TV? He brought it into and that, I just thought that it's just not Kirsty at all.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine Kirsty living on a canal boat. She's pretty self-sufficient. I think she'd love the community there on the canal. She'd be great, she'd be able to fight through Rewilding site and just, I think she'd love a bit of canal living, actually. Yeah, so that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, change of subject now. Well, it's sort of house related. It's from Sally. Does Kirsty ever think she will sell her house on the Beechwood estate, or will she end up living there with Helen and her family? Oh, no, please, no.
She's not going to do that. She can't live with, she doesn't want to live on Beechwood, does she? She can't do it. She just can't, she can't go back there. She's traumatized and haunted by the whole, Philip Moss scandal. She can't do that. And I think living with Helen, I think people think she would maybe do it for a week, in circumstances, but she would just be the unpaid babysitter, reminding her of her childlessness, and I don't think.
Yeah. But do you think she's going to sell? Do you think she's? Sorry, but do you think she's going to sell it at a horribly knocked down price to Tom and Natasha?
No spoilers, please.
No spoilers.
Maybe this week we might find out more. I can't remember when, but I really hope not.
Yeah, so here.
I think she finds it quite hard to stand up to Natasha. I think Natasha's intimidating.
Oh, God.
So let's wait and see what.
Having said that, though, Annabelle, I mean, we have a member of our podcast team who thinks Natasha is correct in asking for a reduction in the price.
Well, I'm Natasha. I'd be asking for a reduction. You would.
Oh,
thank you.
No, you would.
Yes.
You would. You would.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's just slightly insensitive again because it's Kirsty dealing with her ex and his wife.
Yes.
Children.
Yeah.
What's hurtful about it all?
Just because you two have a mutual friend, I mean, you're ganging up on me and Katie.
Exactly. Agreeing on everything. The next question's from Mandy. Which character would you like to be if you weren't Kirsty, and why?
Ooh.
I would love to be
Helen.
I think I'd like to be Lucy.
Ooh. Yes.
Great. Susie Riddle. Riddell, I never know how you say her name. But I'd like to be Horrobin. I would like to be I'd like to have a character with an accent. I was so frustrated that they didn't want me to do an accent when I started in the Archers. I hated my own accent. I'd never used it for work before. This weird, middling, slightly Merseyside not accent. But that's what they wanted. They didn't want someone to sound posh, and they didn't want me to be, Uara from the village, whatever. So they wanted me to have this sort of classless, if you know what I mean, not too posh, but not too working class, and not too specific to a city. It was later that they sort of threw in that she was from the Wirral. And I hated working in my own accent because I was always used to either going more Scouse or totally RP for other acting. So I love it when I've been in like Calendar Girls or whatever, got to do different. So I'd love to be a totally different character myself. But that would be Tracy would do that, or Clary, or Chelsea. How many of those two?
The next question is from Abby. If you could give Kirsty one piece of life advice, what would it be, and how do you think she would take it?
I would say, stop being too forgiving. Don't be too forgiving of people. Stand up for yourself and learn to say no.
And would she take that advice, do you think?
Do now. I think she might, think And actually someone does give advice soon and it's similar to that. But yeah, I think she will take that on.
Okay, Bridget wants to ask you, how do you feel about Kirsty and Roy's relationship? Do you feel Kirsty may have wanted more? She hasn't mentioned Roy that much since he left.
As I said before, I think that they had a lovely platonic relationship, but I think long term, it might have been that, even in their 50s, who knows, they might have said, this is ridiculous. They might have realised they love each other. That's what I think, actually. They might, because I really feel that's the one mutually, balanced, respectful, supportive relationship, friendship she had. And I don't think she's been physically attracted to him so far, but that could grow and change. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that could have happened. But maybe over years, that maybe she'd have another awful experience with someone else and then realise, my God, the person I should be with is living here right with me. It would have been quite nice, maybe. But for them to discover it later in life.
Oh, it would have been lovely.
Yeah.
Question from Ruth. Do you ever take life advice or learn something useful for your own life from one of your roles, whether it's Kirsty or any of your other roles?
Well, I do find that I found myself, I am not a country person. I need to be by a train station and I need people. I don't want to drive. I hate driving other than just the roads in my tiny area of London. So I would hate to be driving a Pine-Still country road. But I love gardening and being in the garden. And I found myself getting obsessed with birds in the garden. And the other day, again, I don't think it's an episode that's not gone out yet. Kirsty was doing a particular job. And I found myself doing it in the garden. I'm morphing into it, yeah. And I do that side of Kirsty, and I started open water swimming now as well. I'm not brave enough to do it between sort of November and March. I go to Beckenham Place Park in London, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I go there but I go with Angus Imrie, who plays. Who does Angus play? He plays
Josh.
Josh.
We go swimming together, and Jolene Buffy has been with me swimming, do wild water swimming while swimming. So there's crossovers with some of the things that Kirsty enjoys in life. And then obviously through storylines like the late miscarriage and the modern slavery racket, I learned a huge amount. Yeah. But maybe as I've grown older and appreciating nature more myself, genuinely, I think some things like, Kirsty would do that. Not injecting a pig, though. That sort of thing. No, I couldn't do that.
Now, funny enough, we come on to several questions now about Bridge Farm and the goings on there with Kirsty.
Right.
The first one is from Johnny, not that Johnny, I believe. Does it frustrate you how sometimes Kirsty is a doormat for Helen? She always tries to help her and often gets little back in return. Or do you admire her loyalty to her friend?
I admire her loyalty, but I do think she should stand up for herself more. I do. And I think it's a shame we don't see more of that, because though years ago you did see Kirsty laying to Helen a bit and say, no, stuff your job. She walked out of Ambridge Organics. And I think, why can't we see a bit more of that now? I think we know that Kirsty's got that inner strength and feistiness in it and has not been afraid to say things in the past. So I'd like to see her stand up. I think the problem is, because Helen's been through so much trauma as well, Kirsty probably felt she couldn't say anything. And with Rob coming back and dying last year, and I think she's always slightly on eggshells with Helen, and she's aware of her past and her eating disorder and various things. And I think maybe she's too careful with Helen. I think you're right. She should stand up for her more, actually. I'd like to see her standing up, and there was a slight thing with the house recently, wasn't there? And curtains.
Yes.
But that was about as far as it went. I think it would be good for her to be. Well, and also, I think there's been times when Helen's just been a little bit insensitive. The three of us, so I really need the house. And that, I think, piss off. That's not my choice that the three of you and only one of me. Be more sensitive to the fact that I'm on my own. I think that maybe could come out more.
Yeah. Okay, Claire asks, after such deep betrayals by the Bridge Farm archers, why has Kirsty spent her life in their shadows?
Why, oh, why? We have to talk about
Next.
I don't know. I think in Kirsty's defense, she would say, I'm not in their shadows. I've forged my way now. I said to Tom when he asked me to marry him, when I got pregnant by him, he asked me to marry him again. And I said, get stuffed. There's no way I'm doing that. I'll bring this baby up on my own and you co-parent. So she made that decision and very sadly lost the baby, but she did not go back to him, which I thought was admirable. And I would say now she's forged her own career. She's taken a different path. So I don't think she's living in their shadows. It's just unfortunate that with this whole house situation now, she is slightly clinging on to their every decision for it to go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question from Daniel, kind of following it on. How do you perceive Kirsty's feeling about Tom and Natasha and their attitude towards her, given her and Tom's previous history? It's not an easy situation.
It's not easy at all. And I'd like us to hear more about that, because I think it's just, I think it must be unbearably hard. And I think, to be honest, ideally, she wouldn't want to sell it to them, but she's just desperate to be able to buy Willow Farm. I think it must be really, really hard. And I think, she has had a separate relationship with Natasha when they went out on the streets looking for the boys who'd been exploited by Philip. But I still think it must hurt. I don't know what people say, it's been 15 years, whatever. I still, you don't get that. You don't forget the feelings you had then. And it, even though it wasn't that he betrayed her for Natasha, to see that marriage working and him with this feisty woman, it's Natasha as well, must be really tough. So I don't think it's easy at all. And I don't know. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to maybe hear sometimes her talk to another character about how hard that is, so that she has to just shut it out. I think she's very good at compartmentalizing, Kirsty. She has to be, otherwise she wouldn't cope. She wouldn't have been able to move on.
Thank you. The next question is from Kirsty. Yes, a different one again. What's the biggest challenge for you in playing Kirsty? I ask because I find myself grinding my teeth with fury whenever I hear Kirsty being kind and thoughtful to Tom and Helen.
Yes. Well, there is that. It's hard because sometimes you want to play against what's in the script, and you try to a bit, but you can't. You've got to serve the script. So I find it is frustrating. As I say, keep listening this week or next. But I think that's the hard thing. Kirsty can seem sometimes to some people a little sanctimonious, a little too much of a do-gooder. She's very clear about morally right or wrong. And sometimes you want to go, oh, Kirsty, come on. drink a bit more wine and have fun, which I think she can do. So I think the hardest bit is I think that's it. What people perceive for being a doormat is playing, trying to show that she is not that and remembering that she has got this inner steel and this feisty side. And she's a survivor. She survived a lot of pretty awful things. And we've got to remember that.
Okay. Kathy says, Kirsty's been through a huge amount and has had some terrible luck. What do you hope happens for her? I hope she finds happiness as she really deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I would love her to fall in love. I'd love her to have a mad, passionate love affair. I'd love her to have a child in that love affair. I'd like her to be a mother. I mean, she's 44. Still good. Or I would like this other way she could have a child. And they're probably not wanting this, the writers, they probably want to have a child, I'm not sure. I just would like it selfishly as an actor to have that further relationship for the future, And it's, but I think I would like to see her happy, but we want it to cause ripples. It's got to affect other people, I think. It should be interesting. But of course she deserves some good luck. She really does. She really does. People, everyone seems to feel that, so.
Yeah.
So who with them? Who is them?
We'll hopefully find out at some point. Question from Max. What's been the most difficult or hardest scene you've ever had to do for the Archers, as Kirsty's had some truly hard times and experiences?
Yeah, as I said before, the playing when she broke down after a miscarriage, that was the hardest in terms of emotionally. But actually, I mean, that was the hardest thing she went through, one of the hardest things she went through. And it was hard doing the big screaming in the vestry because you just having to build up to that animalistic wail, as it was told in the script. It was quite hard to go from, within one scene to build up to that level on radio, But actually, the hardest scenes to play are the ones when the ones where I'm talking about nature and wildlife and art and what to play. Because it's much easier when I've got that dramatic or anger or sadness or whatever it is. When you're just talking and actually you're giving information to the listener as well, but you're trying to make it sound as natural as possible and that your character 100% has this knowledge, and maybe me, Annabelle, does. That to me is actually the hardest, and not make it sound dull or boring or preachy. They're the hardest scenes to me to play. When, if you talk about the birds or the benefits of the beavers, they're the hardest scenes, really, when you're trying to also play out the relationship with that person in a natural way and not make it sound like you're reading from a textbook.
Yeah.
Well, Annabelle, you have survived the Facebook questions. Well done. Round of applause to you for that. Great answer. Yes. We come to the very last question. I should say we're recording this Sunday morning, the 16th of March, and we come to the final question, which is the pass the parcel question. We always ask the cast member we've interviewed last a question to ask you. And the cast member we interviewed last was Alistair, played, of course, by Michael Lumsden. And his question for Kirsty is this. Alistair's been to a few dance classes, not entirely successful, since Denise has been in the picture. Any chance Kirsty might be offering flamenco sessions anytime soon?
Oh, yes, come on. This is because he knows that me, Annabelle, I've got a Spanish husband in real life. And so everyone in the Archers knows I've got this big Spanish connection. We spend a lot of time in Spain. But Kirsty, the odd time, has had to be given Spanish words to say. And I always choose to say it as if she's never had a Spanish class in her life. Like, I hate it when English people say chorizo, because I always say chorizo. But I thought, I can't have Kirsty in chorizo, So, I'm not sure if Michael is directing that question to me, Annabelle, or Kirsty, because as far as I know, Kirsty's not great at flamenco, but I'm sure she'd be up for it. I'm sure she's done a bit of choreography in Linda's shows over the years. Actually, could be a good thing. Let's get her involved in some of the dancing. That's a good way to meet people as well. Single woman in her 40s to get some dance classes. So you're up now.
Brilliant. Well, Annabelle, it's just been an absolute joy to talk to you and hear more about Kirsty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on.